Over the past few years, the topic of anxiety and depression has become the main talking point for so many people on social media. It seems that a lot of people my age tend to use memes and jokes to express their concern for their own mental health. While this is good in a way, as it allows for people to open up in a very non-direct way, as opposed to not talking about it at all, I can't shake off the feeling that maybe mental health has become too mainstream for its own good, or maybe the problem with mental health is bigger than we have all thought. I often see people post about the issues, whether they have been diagnosed or not, and I wonder whether such exposure for the topic is good. Anything that's overexposed eventually seems to turn into a trend, thus there is a thin line between talking about it through indirect means and turning it into something that apparently everybody has. Let's be fair, humans are the kind of species that will be attracted by the idea of having something just to fit in with the group, even if that something isn't very good to have. As somebody educated in the field of psychology, I worry about the idea that being not well is becoming trendy and romanticized, and so I decided to not join the bandwagon, even though there are a few symptoms in my own psyche that worry me. I was attracted by When the Darkness Comes, a free game on Steam that explores the concept of mental health. As somebody who has too much time these days, a degree in psychology and an interest in gaming journalism, I couldn't resist the urge to play this short gaming experience. Right from the get-go, the game warns that this title isn't for everyone, as it might have a negative effect on those who are suffering. I also read that as a warning to anyone who isn't suffering from mental health, as the game might simply not appeal to them with its contents. And so I have completed this 1 hour long game twice now and got 2 different endings. When the Darkness Comes can be best described as a walking simulator. The gameplay mainly revolves around the player walking through a series of levels designed to showcase mental health problems, such as anxiety and depression. Let's start this review with a graphical aspect. The game was created with the Unity engine, so it does look rather well, though with very little texture work. Buildings as well as NPCs are merely shapes, quite often fully black, which is a very smart design choice for this topic, but more on that a bit later. Rather than making the game look like $1 million, the developer chose to concentrate on communicating the atmosphere rather than fine detail, which came out really well. The sound design is also noteworthy, with the soothing piano track making its appearance throughout the game and narration from the developer. I was amazed with the narration used in this game, assumingly performed by the developer himself. The direct talking from the developer to the player made the experience feel more connected, as if When the Darkness Comes was made just for me personally. It established a strong sense of understanding between us, with me knowing that I am merely visiting this world, as if watching a presentation even though the concepts might be familiar. The game also reads some data from your PC to learn your name, current date and time, as well as your desktop wallpaper. This information is used during the game to develop even more intimate link between the player and the game in a variety of different ways, but I'm not going to go into the great depth about it to not ruin the experience for you should you want to check this game out after watching this video. All this data is read and kept local to your PC, so you don't need to worry about your personal info being leaked. As I have previously mentioned, the level design mainly consists of black walls, blocks, human-like silhouettes, and cameras. Having experienced some mental health issues myself, I can appreciate a design choice for presenting these games' environments. During periods in which mental health can force you to withdraw from society, you may often perceive other people and buildings as nothing more than shapes around you. The security cameras appearing in majority of these levels also add to the sense of constantly being watched and judged in more severe cases. Thus, I understood exactly why the developer has chosen these objects to represent human psyche. The levels in When Darkness Comes are carefully crafted to present certain feelings, symptoms, and emotions one may experience while dealing with mental health issues. One of the earlier levels in the game, called Market I believe, presents the idea of fear a person can experience while being surrounded by strangers during an anxiety attack. Getting too close to any of the NPCs results in the level reloading to present one's fear of being confronted by a stranger. This is obviously not likely to happen, that a whole street of strangers would surround you and throw abuse at you, but this is how anxiety works. Anxiety is not fear of something happening, it's a fear of something that could be happening. Later, the player starts in a dark room with the task of following a very narrow road to safety. Because of the complete darkness, this isn't the easiest of tasks, as the only indicators to show where you are meant to be going are white borders of said path. Imagine walking over a dam in complete darkness with the only indicators of the borders are the walls going all the way down to the bottom of the dam. I think that this level is yet again one of the examples of a game doing the mental health sim thing right. When you're on a path through anxiety and depression, it is often the extremes of negative experiences that put you back on the right track. In this case, the extreme being you straying off the path enough to see the white walls. You see evidence of that in stories told by ex-addicts, where they say how they reach rock bottom to really notice the problem and seek help. Panic attack is another mental health issue touched on in this game. One of these levels is an empty room with nothing in it but a fish tank. The roof is made of water, indicating that you are also located in a tank. Suddenly, once you realize this, the walls will become covered in text saying that you cannot breathe. This was very interesting, as you obviously can breathe in real life, but the way the level is designed, you will feel a certain level of desperation. It was also interesting personally for me, as I used to know a person who would experience panic attacks quite often. Those attacks would be triggered by moments of high anxiety and stress, where said person would suddenly forget how to breathe. I would often have to walk that person through the process of breathing in and out. It might sound weird to anyone who hasn't experienced anything to do with panic attacks, but I can assure you that they are absolutely real, and anyone talking about not being able to breathe during said attacks isn't over-dramatizing their experience. There is one level that is quite tricky to figure out at first. You find yourself at an edge of a pond with a female-like figure swinging in the middle of it, with sun rays behind the back. Since this is the most interesting part of the level, you assume that the goal is to reach her. So you try once and you drown. You try again and you drown again. Eventually I figured out that you simply can't reach her, and the real aim in this level is to get to the sun behind her to finish the level. This spoke volumes about mental health and reaching for help. Normally, anyone with depression and anxiety will often suffer in silence, alone with shame and believe that nobody else will understand the struggle. The swinging woman is the avatar of help, somebody who will be able to help you, while the pond is the thing that will always swallow you, like anxiety and separation. Speaking of shame, there is also a level in which your goal is only to walk from point A to point B, while a poem is being read out. From a video game perspective, this is the dullest moment in the game. However, as somebody who wrote an entire album based around my own mentality, I can understand why including a poem is such a key thing in an experience like this. See, while experiencing mental health problems, it is hard to express yourself in a normal manner for many reasons. Those could be that you simply don't think that anyone will understand you, or anxiety which will put you in a fight or flight situation where you will snap halfway through the conversation, as expressing so many emotions at once can be overwhelming. And that often leads to even more issues, as relationships can suffer after such incidents. Poems and art seem like the best option then, as you can take as long as you need to present yourself in a format that can be as direct or indirect as you want. Thus, you feel lighter on the inside but not embarrassed by your own weaknesses. Finally, the last level I want to talk about is the school level, which is designed to play out like a Slenderman game. You are walking around the school grounds at night looking for 8 clocks which will eventually unlock the portal to the next level. There are some humanoids popping up from time to time as mockery of jump scares one would normally experience in those games, but the player is never put in danger, thus you can't die or fail that level. During my first playthrough, I found this level to be annoying and not very appropriate in the context of the game. I took it for an irritating level where the developer decided to add more gameplay value to the game by implementing an open area in which you will have to backtrack to tick the boxes. Anyway, I did it, and eventually I got to the final level where you have to decide between committing suicide or answering a phone call, assumingly from your mother figure. In my first playthrough, I decided to see what the happy ending is like, so I picked up the phone. The ending rolled and I was teased to play the game again, as there might be new things in the game second time around. So I launched the game again next day. Notably, the game displayed its knowledge of me playing the game before, so it made some comments about it in the form of text. However, the biggest changes second time around were changes made to some levels. For example, the market and school level were now happening in daylight, imposing a far more relaxed atmosphere to the experience. And then again, the end and the choice between living and dying. For the review's sake, I decided to die the second time around, which led to something very interesting. I was kicked from the game. So I launched the game again and I was welcomed by a new title screen without the option to start the game or any other option. The only available part of information on the screen was a text that I am no longer a part of the game's world, and that some choices have consequences. The game has also changed my desktop wallpaper to one themed after the game, saying, "You were warned." Additionally, I have also found an image file on my desktop saying nothing but "look further." I was astounded. The game knew too well that I have taken the bad option, and I was punished with not being able to change any of my choices in the game again. And then that's when the themes of the game really hit me. The school level, which I hated, suddenly made sense. The nighttime, in which the level was presented for the first time, meant to indicate the darkness of one's fragile state, as opposed to the daylight in second playthrough, indicating that some days are in fact brighter and more positive. You will have bad days and good days. Sometimes the bad days will lead to a good ending, and sometimes the good days will lead to a bad ending. Such is the fragility of one's mental state. This is the clever manipulation set in place by the developer. He knew that some players will decide to take the good ending after the dark levels, just because as humans we do want a happy ending. But he also knew that we will test the game after the second playthrough by picking a bad ending, even if the game was happier. You might see somebody happy during the day only to hear about that person succumbing to depression that same evening, without any logical links between A and B, leaving everyone surprised and confused about what had happened. The game expresses the finality of that choice between life and death by banning the player from accessing the game again, after the bad ending, only giving a small taste of the consequences that suicide brings. And this is why When the Darkness Comes will stay in my mind for a long time, even though I only managed to play it for about 2 hours. The game has touched on so many dark concepts in such a respectful and elegant way, connecting with people who are familiar with the topics expressed within. It has helped me to understand myself by presenting some of my own emotions in a somewhat brutally honest narrative that wasn't my own. This game is truly a remarkable piece of art which should be experienced by as many people as possible to show that we are never alone, even though our mind is telling us otherwise.